Every barcode scanner, every Blu-ray disc, every laser pointer in a lecture hall, every pulse of light carrying information through fiber-optic cables beneath the ocean floor, every checkout beep you've heard 1,000 times without noticing. They all belong to a world made possible by the laser, and few people played a larger role in that story than a physicist named Gordon Gould. His contribution began with a single notebook. For the next 30 years, Gordon Gould would spend nearly everything he had trying to prove that a notebook entry from 1957 had changed the world. In November of 1957, Gordon Gould filled a notebook with detailed laser concepts, applications, and designs, and became the first known person to write down the word laser itself. For the next 3 decades, nearly everyone with more money, more influence, and better lawyers would tell him he was wrong. Gould was a physicist's physicist. After studying at Yale and later pursuing graduate work at Columbia University, he spent the war years working on uranium enrichment for the Manhattan Project. Calutrons, mass spectrometers, the unglamorous machinery behind one of the most consequential scientific projects in history. By the 1950s, he was back at Columbia as a doctoral student, chasing one of the biggest unanswered questions in physics. Could you take ordinary light, messy, scattered, moving in every direction at once, and force it into a single focused beam of extraordinary power? Scientists across the country were beginning to wonder whether the same principle could work with visible light. Gould believed it could, and on the night of November 13, 1957, he sat down and worked through the problem, page after page filled with calculations, designs, materials, possible applications. As the ideas came together, he gave the concept a name, LASER, light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. Today, it's one of the most recognizable scientific words in the world. That night, it existed only in Gordon Gould's notebook. He knew the idea was valuable. He knew it needed protection. But instead of filing a patent application immediately, he took the notebook to a local notary public and had the pages officially witnessed and dated. It seemed like a sensible precaution. It would become the most expensive mistake of his life. Gould believed that US patent law required a working device before he could apply for a patent. So, he waited. He planned to build the machine first and file later. Meanwhile, other researchers were moving fast. Charles Townes and Arthur Schawlow didn't have a working laser either. What they did have was something Gould lacked: institutional backing, legal resources, and a patent strategy. While Gould tried to build his idea on a graduate student's budget, Bell Labs moved forward with patent applications. In 1960, the US Patent Office granted a foundational laser patent to Townes and Schawlow. 4 years later, Townes would share the Nobel Prize in Physics. Gordon Gould wasn't among the names being celebrated. The man who had documented the concept in extraordinary detail wasn't included in the story that was beginning to form around the laser. For Gould, that omission would become impossible to accept. He didn't give up. After leaving Columbia, Gould joined a small research company called Technical Research Group, or TRG. Using ideas from his notebook, the company secured a classified government contract worth roughly $1 million to pursue laser development. For a moment, it looked like Gould might finally get the opportunity he had been waiting for. Then something completely unrelated to physics threatened to derail everything. During the 1940s, Gould had briefly associated with people connected to the Communist Party. Like many young intellectuals of the era, he had attended meetings and explored political ideas during a period before Cold War tensions transformed those associations into liabilities. When the government conducted a security review, it became a problem. The Department of Defense denied him a security clearance. For nearly 2 years, Gordon Gould was barred from participating in the classified laser project that his own ideas had helped inspire. While others pushed the work forward, he remained locked out. It was another setback, and it wouldn't be the last. By the late 1960s, Gould needed stability. The legal battles were growing. The patent dispute showed no signs of ending. To support himself, he accepted a professorship at the Polytechnic Institute of Brooklyn. Year after year, he taught engineering students about quantum electronics and laser technology, a technology he still wasn't legally recognized for inventing. Most people would have moved on. Gordon Gould couldn't, because he remembered exactly where it had started: the notebook, the calculations, the date, November 13th, 1957. So he fought, and the fight became his life's work. Years turned into decades. Court hearings became appeals. Appeals became new challenges. The laser industry continued to grow at an astonishing speed. Military systems adopted laser rangefinders and targeting technologies. Doctors began using lasers in delicate surgical procedures. In 1982, compact discs brought laser technology into homes around the world. Telecommunications companies expanded fiber optic networks, sending information as pulses of light across continents and oceans. Many of those technologies relied on principles and applications Gordon Gould had described years earlier in his notebook, yet he still owned none of them. The industry expanded into billions of dollars. Gould kept going to court. He spent enormous sums on lawyers, patent proceedings, and appeals. Some advisors encouraged him to settle. Others suggested walking away entirely. The odds seemed overwhelming. But for Gould, the fight had become about more than money. Money was part of it, certainly, but there was something else. Something harder to quantify: recognition. For most of those 30 years, Gordon Gould wasn't fighting to become rich. He was fighting for the historical record. He wanted the world to acknowledge what had happened in that apartment on that November night. That before the headlines, before the Nobel Prize, before the first working laser. He had seen the possibility. He had written it down. So ask yourself, what's worth more, being first or being believed? Finally, after nearly 2 decades of litigation, the tide began to turn. In 1977, Gould received a patent covering the optically pumped laser amplifier. It was a major breakthrough. More importantly, it proved that the fight was not hopeless. The victories continued. Through the late 1970s and into the 1980s, additional patents covering a broad range of commercial laser applications strengthened Gould's position. The industry could no longer ignore him. Companies that had spent years assuming the legal battle would eventually disappear suddenly faced licensing claims tied to patents that had survived challenge after challenge. To manage and license those patents, a company called Patlex was formed. What followed was a wave of negotiations, settlements, and licensing agreements that rippled throughout the laser industry. After decades of setbacks, Gordon Gould finally achieved something few people ever do. He changed the official story. The royalties that followed made him a multimillionaire in his 60s, nearly 30 years after a notary public stamped his notebook, nearly 30 years after the world moved on without him, nearly 30 years after he was told he was wrong. Gordon Gould died in 2005 at the age of 85. Most people who use laser technology every day have never heard his name. They scan groceries, read optical discs, use fiber optic networks, benefit from laser surgery, and never realize that one of the longest patent battles in American history helped shape the technology behind all of it. Gould didn't spend 30 years fighting because he wanted a fortune. By the time the money arrived, it was almost beside the point. What he wanted was something much simpler and much harder to win, for the truth to catch up. The evidence had always existed. It sat quietly inside a notebook, written in his own hand, witnessed and dated by a local notary on a November morning in 1957. The truth was there from the beginning. It just took the rest of the world 30 years to read it.